Hey, this is Chuck from Monocoque Metalworks. Today is finally the day that we're going to turn the engine on this car over by hand and just make sure everything's good. My number one concern there is a stuck valve. Of course, you know, the cylinders could be stuck, but based on what we've already seen by pulling off the oil pan, it looks really great in there. And after we pulled off the cam covers, it looks great in there. So I'm feeling pretty good about this working out pretty well and all the valves moving around. But it's something that we've got to do before we just hit the button and start cranking it over. And in order to do that as safely as possible, I've prepared a couple different things. And one of the things is that we are going to pressurize the oil system before we even try to turn it over by hand. And we're going to do that with this tank. Come on over and take a look at this. Now, on a lot of other engines, like for example, a small block Chevy, you can pull the distributor out and just stick a screwdriver down in there and turn the oil pump because the gear on the distributor is what engages with the crank. But you can't do that on a Jag. And so we've got to pressurize the system externally with this tank. Now, the way this works is you screw in this cap, and this cap actually has a slot in it here. See this little slot there? That will actually let you open the cap without blowing up because you need the pressure to bleed off when you open it. So you fill this up, you screw this down, all right? Then you pressurize it with an air hose and just a tire chuck. And they said put this thing up to 100, but I tested it with 40 and it was fine. And then after you've got this pressurized, you just start opening this valve a little bit and oil or whatever you've put in here comes out. Now, I say whatever you've put in here because I had a little note on it that said be sure to clean it before you use it. And there were a couple little metal shavings in there from the manufacturing process. So I cleaned this out with soapy water. Then I ran mineral spirits through it. Then I ran Marvel Mystery Oil through it. And then I ran the mix that we're going to use through it twice using little screeners. And I did find a couple little shavings, but it's all going through clear now. So what I've put in here is 3 quarts of Castrol GTX 1030 and 1 quart of Marvel Mystery Oil. Because Marvel Mystery Oil is kind of a lot of mineral oil. It's got a lot of heavy cleaning properties. And then it's also a thinner oil. So that is in there. So we're going to hook this up where the oil pressure sending unit was. And here's the oil pressure sending unit. Now, this normally would go right in on the top of the oil filter. You know, you got your canister down here. This goes right on the top. But because we have that aftermarket oil cleaner on this car, they put a T in the top. This was screwed into one side, and the other side is the pressure line for that oil cleaner. And what's also great is it just has standard 1/4-inch pipe threads, and that's what this came with. So I took this off, and that's where we're going to pump this in. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we're going to be pumping this in after the filter. So that's why this had to be really clear. And it's going to backfill the filter. Now, it says in the instructions, fill up the filter first. We can't do that with the sideways canister filter on an E-type. So we're just going to do the best we can here. What I'm looking for is to pressurize the whole system until I can see this oil and Marvel Mystery Oil mix coming out of the holes in the cam. I don't know if we'll get quite that far, but we'll see how that goes. Now, in addition, speaking of the cam, this is Permatex Ultra Slick, and it is an engine assembly lube. And the reason this is kind of a sticky oil, you put this on camshafts when you put it together because it sticks around on there for a while, maybe a month or so, before you have a chance to turn it over. So I'm going to put this on all of the cam lobes just to make sure that that's nice and clear. I mean, you could just pour oil on there and that would be fine. And then I'm going to use my favorite penetrant here, Aerocroil. I'm going to spray this on the tappets just to make sure that I can get those tappets moving, see if there's anything stuck there. This is a very thin oil, and you can see right on there it says the oil that creeps, and it really does creep into small cavities. So let's go ahead over there to the car and start this process. Okay, up here is where we're going to tap into the oil system. Here's that T, and like I said, normally the sending unit, the pressure gauge sending unit would be coming straight up out of there, but they've put a T in place. And so that brass is the T itself, and then the zinc coated steel there is our fitting for our pressure tank. So you're going to see the tank, but you're going to wonder where the line goes. That's where it goes to. Okay, so now it's time to put a little bit of penetrant on the tappets here. Now, come over here. The ones that I'm mostly concerned about are the ones that are pushed in. They've been sitting in the down state all that time. So we're just going to put a little of this here, and keep in mind everything that goes down in the pan is going to get drained out and refilled. So there you go. That's what we're going to do there, and we're going to do that even on the ones that are up, just to be safe. All right, and we'll do all those. And then what we're also going to do is put this ultra slick engine assembly lubricant on the lobes. There you go. And that'll run down. And that way, when they're interfacing with the tappet itself, they're not going to put a gouge in there or anything like that. Again, a lot of this might be overkill, but this hasn't moved in a long time. And so we want to be better safe than sorry. Okay, so we've got this all done now. You can go ahead and look in here and see that there's ultra slick on every lobe, and we've put the aero coil on every tappet. Now this is a little cup of Marvel Mystery Oil. I already did this about a week ago, but I'm going to do it again. I put this right on the timing chain. Like I said, I already did this. There you go. Right on the timing chain, and let it all run down and run right into the pan if it wants to, whatever. Just to try to get some of those links freed up. But again, this all looks really beautiful inside. So we're probably okay. Okay. Okay, there's the line going right there into our oil system. All right, and then you can see the line comes down and it goes right to the tank. So now we're going to go ahead and lower this car back down, pressurize the tank, and see what we can do here to pressurize this system. Now we are going to have to fill up in reverse the oil filter canister right there. And then we're also going to have to fill up that oil cleaner. Okay, I've got the tank sitting up here on top of the air cleaner plenum. And you can see it's all hooked up. It is pumped up to 50 PSI. And as soon as I crack this valve open, it is going to pump that mix of 1030 oil and Marvel Mystery Oil into the whole oil system of the block. And then it'll go up into the head, down into the cams. It should do all the main bearings, the rod bearings, the cam bearings, the whole 9 yards. But first, it's going to have to fill this oil cleaner and the oil filter. Now, I don't want to get distracted or anything, so I'm not going to film that going in. If we do get it all pumped up and coming out of these holes in the cam lobes, then maybe we'll film that. But let me just try to do this here. Okay, this is working. At first, it kind of wasn't going. We didn't know where it was going, but it was coming out of here. But then we have got oil coming out of all the cam lobes on the exhaust side. We actually had to wipe it up once. So go ahead and film that. I'll just open it up a little bit. See if we get some more coming out to show you. You hear that? That's pushing air out of the oiling system. Is there anything coming out?
Yep.
All right.
Well, you can see we are pressurizing the oiling system. So we've got oil coming out of the cam lobes everywhere, and it's filling up the little valley here. So I think we might be good to go to turn over. Might try to push a little more through and do some cleanup, and then we'll call this pressurized. Oh, this is great. Okay, it's time. I've been waiting 3 years to do this. And I've done everything that I can think of to eliminate problems that might arise or to lubricate this and free everything up. So, I don't want to just stand here and talk all the time, but let's go over that because it might help you. First of all, 2.5 years ago, I'm embarrassed to say, I started putting Marble Mystery Oil in these cylinders. And I've topped it off 2 or 3 times. Not topped it off, but, I put 3 or 4 tablespoons in each cylinder. Now, last week, we pulled the pan, cleaned it all out, put it back on. And in that process, we saw that Marble Mystery Oil had come down and was hanging off all of the crank rods and mains just off the bolts dripping. So the Marble Mystery Oil did go through. That's a good sign. We cleaned the pan all out, got all the sludge out of the bottom. It's spotless inside, put it back on with new gaskets. All right. The next thing we did was we pulled the distributor. We were worried that maybe like the grease in there would seize things up and it would twist that little gear down on the crank without being able to twist the distributor and bend that little intermediate shaft. So that's all good. The distributor's all free and back in there. All right. We've pulled the cam covers. We've put Ultra Slick on the lobes. We've put Aerocroil into the tappets where we can to get that all cleared out. We poured Marble Mystery Oil on top of the timing chain. Let that all leak down through. Okay. And now finally, we've hooked up our oil pressure tank and we have pressurized the system. That should pressurize all the rod bearings, the main bearings, fill up the oil cleaner and the oil filter, pressurize the cam bearings, and we had oil coming out of all the cam lobes on that side, which is actually easier to get to for the oil because of the way that the little feed line on back of the head tees off. So we had it coming out of all of that side, and then we were holding those closed with our fingers, and we had it coming out of most of the ones on this side. The plugs are out, so we're not going to get a hydraulic pressurizing of any Marble Mystery Oil that's left in there. It's probably going to make a bit of a mess there, and we'll clean that up as we go. So we are ready to turn it. Now you're going to turn it with an 1 5/16" socket. This is 3/4 drive, but it's got there's a tight room to fit in there, and you're going to see that next where this is hooked up down in there. So I had to modify this extension so it puts this right in the spot I need it, which is going to be in front of the picture frame but behind the front sway bar. So let's go ahead and lift this up, and we are going to start to turn it, but we're just going to turn it just a fraction, and then we're going to make sure every one of these tappets is coming back. So we'll probably start out with something like this one right here, but you can see there. See, that one's all the way pressed down, and we're going to be turning this clockwise. All right? This one over here is coming off. But anyway, these ones that are pressed down, we're going to turn a little bit, make sure it's coming back. Turn a little bit, make sure it's coming back. And we're going to do that multiple times for all of these. Remember, you've got to spin the crank twice to make the cams go around once. All right? So let's get under there. Let's hook this up on the crank. Let's grab it and see if it'll move. This engine has not moved in 52 years. That's more than half a century. So this is kind of a big deal. This engine has not spun in my lifetime. So let's hope for the best. Okay, you can see I've got the socket on the crank. I'm going to turn clockwise. See how I shortened up that extension so that this is just in here and fits fine. All right. Now I'm going to have my trusty helper, Cooper, who was driving around the 67 2+2 behind him all morning. He's going to take this and film this attempt. All right, gotta make sure my shirt's tucked in. Everything's good. All right, this is it. You got my hand in there and everything?
Yeah.
All right, hopefully she'll just spin right over. A little nervous. Here it goes. Oh, yeah, baby. It is like butter. Okay, now we got to go up there and take a look at those, what are they called? The tappets, and make sure they're coming back. And I think we're going to reposition the lift down lower. One guy is going to sit here, probably you, Cooper, underneath and just turn this thing slow, while the other guy, me, is just going to keep a real close eye on those tappets. I want to turn this more, but I'm not going to. Just a teensy bit. We got to make sure those valves are all coming back. Okay, now this is the tappet that I had my eye on before because it was straight down and I knew that turning the engine clockwise was going to bring it off. And you can see that it does look like it is coming back. It's very hard to film, but we're still in contact. It's coming back. And so this one seems to be moving okay. Now, see, eventually this will need to come up to that height there. See how we're sticking out of the tappet guide, probably about 1/8 of an inch. Right now, we're down inside there, close to 1/8 of an inch. All right, so we just got to keep watching these. I got to keep making sure that one's coming back, but I got to really keep my eye on these and decide, okay, which one's going down next. Really, it's not the going down that I care about. It's who's coming off. So this guy over here is coming off too. Is he? No, he's going on. This guy here's coming off. See, that's the thing. You got to keep our wits about us here because we can't have one not come up and not be paying attention. So that's why we're just turning that just a fraction at a time while we keep our eye on this. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, it's going. It's making a funny little noise that it almost sounds like a tight rubber seal or something. So I'm not sure. I put more Marvel Mystery Oil in the cylinders. All of the domes were dry except this guy here. I don't know if you can see down in there. No, you really can't. But this one here, there's standing oil in it. So I guess that one didn't really leak through, but everything seems to be moving. So as you can see, I'm nervous, but I think we're okay. But anyway, you can see this lobe is off now, and we're up where we should be. So the valve came back. And the same thing with this guy over here. We're not fully off yet, but it's coming back. And so now, in the process of those coming off, we've pushed this one down, and we've pushed this one down. So now they're the next two we've got to make sure come back. And we will just keep going like that. And I've got a little chart here, and I'm checking them off as they come back up. Okay, I'm gonna video and show you how we're doing this, and you can hear the funny little noise maybe. All right. Okay, go ahead. See, it just moved, but you can barely tell on that one. Okay, go ahead. See, and that one's coming off, and then this one's coming off. Okay, go ahead. Okay, go ahead. See, that's how we're doing it, just a smidge at a time. We'll give them one more so they can hear that noise. Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's odd. Okay, we've hit a bit of resistance. I'm not saying I couldn't push through it, but I don't want to force anything. I'm suspecting that what might be happening, see, this valve is just about to come on. And so is this one. Right? Is it that one? Yeah, so's that one. Thinking one of these two might be a little stuck closed. And so it's basically stopped everything because it's stopping the cam from spinning. So I'm going to think about this for a minute. I think I'm going to try to tap that a little bit and just jar it loose with something soft. So stand by. Okay, we've hit a snag. We are stopped dead. And after poking around and confirming with a hammer and a little drift that these tappets are free, it would seem that either this or this cylinder, which are coming to their very top, have something in there, some kind of buildup or something that is stopping them from going all the way up. So we may need to back them down and get in there with a thin vacuum of some type. I don't know. But for now, I need to stop and think about it. So everything's free and it spins, but it doesn't spin all the way. We got a bit of a snag and I don't want to force it. So we're going to stop and think. Okay, it's the next morning and I figured this out last night, but I just wanted to sleep on it and all that. And so I'm pretty sure I figured out what the problem is here. When I put the marble mystery fluid in these cylinders a couple years ago, I pulled the plugs out and then I vacuumed out the cylinder because I figured there'd be little chunks of, like dried up carbon and stuff in there. And then I put the marble mystery oil in. And there would have been nothing wrong with that whole concept, and there was nothing wrong with that for 5 of the 6 cylinders. But on this cylinder here, the exhaust valve was open. And I learned when I pulled the exhaust manifold off last year that there was a whole bunch of, flakes of ash and aluminum corrosion and all that in this manifold. Not this one. This one was spotless over here. But this one, all 3 cylinders had that in it. But anyway, so as you can see, when I vacuumed out these cylinders before putting in the marble mystery oil to leak down in there, nothing happened here because these 2 valves were closed. But this valve was open and it sucked all that junk into the cylinder, and I think it sucked some more junk from down in the exhaust in there too. So that stuff is probably the reason why the marble mystery oil didn't drain out of here, and it's also a bunch of junk in there that's clogging that and keeping me from going all the way up. So I need to get that out of there now. So I'm going to do that by putting some mineral spirits in there, which apparently is what a lot of marble mystery oil is. And I'm going to rotate the cam back, or the whole engine back in that other direction until this exhaust valve is open again. And then I'm going to use compressed air to try to blow all that junk out of there. I don't have the exhaust on, so I'm going to put a tube on there and try to blast it all down into a bucket. It's probably going to be messy, but I think we're going to be okay here. Okay, I wrapped some plastic sheeting around the exhaust manifolds at the bottom so that whatever blasted out under pressure didn't go all over the car. And then I caught it in this bucket. And you can see from the color, it's got some marble mystery oil in it. But see, look, this is all the junk that got sucked into the cylinder out of the exhaust system. And I figured there'd be a little bit of this in there. I didn't figure there would be this much. So
I thought the little bit that got sucked in there would just get blasted out when we started the engine. And whatever is left in there will. But we need to get it out so we can get the piston to top dead center. And we also want to get out as much as we possibly can so that there won't be any scoring or anything. So we're going to do this several more times and get out as much as we can. The darkness of the oil, and some of this might have come out of the exhaust manifold, but I already had the exhaust manifold off and cleaned it up. You know, I didn't super scrub the inside of it. And I also really cleaned out the exhaust port. So I think this really is coming out of the cylinder itself. All right, let's keep going. Here's round 2. Now you know why it was enough to keep that piston from going all the way up. It's kind of embarrassing, actually, but you know, you don't know this stuff till you get into it. So if that exhaust valve had been closed like the other 5, it wouldn't have had any problems. But man, there was a ton of junk in that exhaust, and it really sucked it into that cylinder with the shop vac. So don't do that. You're going to keep going here. This time I did a lot of dry blowing, in addition to the, you know, the mineral spirits in there too. So I think that helps. So just keep going. Okay, here's round 4. We're getting right down to it now. I think it's pretty much out of the cylinder, and I'm just washing out the manifold and all of that. I'm going to do it one more time for good measure, and then we're going to blow it out. And then we're going to vacuum it. Okay, here's the next round. This is the 5th round. I don't think we're ever going to get nothing. And I think that some of this, again, is still coming out of the manifold in that sheet. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call it here on the mineral spirits. And I'm going to really blast it out dry with an air gun. And then I'm going to vacuum it. And then we're going to put Marvel Mystery Oil back in it and try turning the engine over again. This is what came out of it. It is rust flakes and dust from inside the exhaust. And that's about half. I didn't save what came out of the first shot. That's what came out of the second shot. And the third shot, but then the 4th and 5th were just residual little amounts. So about double that much. Well, as you can see, I vacuumed it out, but I wasn't willing to take the risk of doing it in the garage. Nothing happened. There were no fumes or anything, and I had really cleared it out, and the exhaust valve's open. And it was going so well, I went ahead and vacuumed all the other ones out too, just in case there were any little chunks or pieces I could get out. There's carbon on the pistons, and a lot of what came out was broken up carbon. I mean, it was full of rust flakes, no doubt, but the piston's really clean now. But anyway, so let's try this again. Okay, let's try this again. Got all the junk out of that cylinder. I made sure there was nothing in any other cylinder either. I repressurized the whole oiling system with the tank. I put Marvel Mystery Oil back in all the cylinders. I put a lot in that one. And I put Ultra Slick back on the lobes. So we're going to try this again. Okay, we got it. That was the problem. And the piston has come to the very top and has started moving back down again. And there was no resistance at all. And everything felt just the way it was when we started. So now I'm back to checking these tappets to make sure they're coming back. But I gave them all a little tap because I thought maybe one was stuck before we figured out this other problem. And they all seem to be free. So I think we are on our way here, people. Okay, it's moving real smooth.
making a funny little noise, but it's almost like a rubbery noise. It might be that fan bell. All right. Hang on. See, I gotta take another bite on it here. See, I got my rags in here so I don't scratch the picture frame or anything. Let me adjust that. Okay. All right. Oh, she's just very silky smooth now. Okay, that might have been boring for you guys. I feel like it's the same view over and over again, but it was pretty exciting and scary for me. But I've now turned it over twice. So the cams have gone all the way around one time. Here's my little checklist. Every valve has gone all the way down and all the way back up. And this is just so free and beautiful in here. This car had 37,000 miles on it. Inside the engine, it looks like it had 37 miles on it. So now that I've got that junk cleared out of the cylinder, it is free and clear. I'm going to turn it over a little more, but this is the end of this video. And next we're going to put the cam covers back on. And then I've got to drain all the junk I put in here to lube it up for this turning. And then we're going to get started on the electrical system. And that should be fun. But we are getting there. And it's looking very promising.